But see, we're going to kind of define it a little differently for you this morning. And, some of you who are in the room, and if you're visiting with us, we're so glad you're here. But we've been in a series for this is the 5th week on marriage. And week 1 we did is, what is a biblical marriage? And we defined that biblically. And then week 2 we said, is a biblical marriage possible? And then third, we talked about communication. And I think last week we talked about a very tough subject as well, kind of leading into today. But, one of the things we want you to take away from today is this is more, instead of an exegetical study this morning, this is more topical, which is a little different than what you're accustomed with, especially with me and Miss Nancy. So she's going to give you tons of verses, but this is going to be really topical, and we're going to get kind of down to some nitty-gritty. So I want you to turn to Hebrews chapter 2. Hebrews chapter 2, and kind of put your place there. And I kind of want to kind of give you some things you might want to write somewhere. Now, there's in your little packet of marriage, there's some pages in there for notes, and you might need that today because we didn't have a whole lot of room left on your little handout, so you might need that. So I want to give you a couple of things. I want to kind of go back over what is the goal of why we're doing this? What's the goal? When we're done with this series, what is it that Nancy and I, through what we believe God's speaking to us, that we want? And I want to give you the first one. We want to see healing brought to bear on, now watch this, on our marriages and on our relationships. These same principles we're talking about in marriage work in relationships. So we want to see healing. And to do that, what must take place? And I'm going to give it to you this way. You and I have to take ownership of our life, our relationships, our marriages, and then we have to take ownership of our part. For so long we've kind of, given away ownership to our spouse or to the other person in the relationship. But you know what? I got to take ownership of my part. I got to do my part. And then, if I could see a win here for all of us, if you want to say, how would you know if we won here, Pastor? It'd be simply this. I would hope that when we're done and we saw healing in marriages, that what my greatest, if I could just smile and die, going to be and be in heaven, it would be the fact that you decided to take the hurts, the habits, the hang-ups, the issues of your life. God's healed you, and now you're willing to pour those things into somebody else, into another couple. You see, I tell couples that we counsel with all the time, we're going to meet with you, but here's what we're going to tell you. One day, whatever the issue is we're meeting with you about, God's going to bring somebody in our life, and I'm going to go, I know exactly who you need to talk to. Because see, I don't know what you're experiencing. You don't know what I'm experiencing. You don't know what I've been through. You don't know about my childhood. I don't know about yours. You don't know about our relationship. But here's what I know. Now that I know your story, and I know what God's done, I'm gonna hope that God would use your story to change a life. But see, here's the problem with the church today. We don't want to tell our stories. In some cases, we're embarrassed. Some cases, we're kind of prideful in the fact that we don't want anybody to know, what I've been through, what I'm going through. But hey, I've heard this somewhere. I don't know where I heard it, but He breathes new breath into dead things. And if He brought something back to life, He didn't bring it back just for you. He brought it back that you could glorify Him by telling other people of the great things He's done. So if you keep your story quiet, that's so be it to you. But I'm going to tell you, friend, most of the time, if you'll tell more people about your story, then your story will have an impact on other people's lives that you never imagined. And so your hurts and your habits and your healing, that especially the hurt part, was not done in vain. That somebody was able to be healed by your story. So that's the goal for why we're trying to do this. And I said last week, the ultimate goal for a relationship is to get to intimacy. Now, most of you, we defined intimacy. I want to give you this definition one more time. You can write it somewhere. But intimacy means to be fully known or to know fully. To be fully known or to know fully. To be fully known or to know fully. Now, we said in week 3 that this relationship had to be right before these relationships. I don't have time to go back through all these messages again. But here's what we said, that God wanted to be intimate with us. Enough that God decided one day to send His Son in intimacy. God wanted to, watch this, God wanted to be fully known, and the only way to do that was to send His Son. Because when Jesus said, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. Right? God wanted to be fully known. Amen or amen? Amen. And this is teaching. So God wanted to be fully known. So I have to put my glasses. I don't have my prescription glasses, so I have to look over these. I'm old and forgot. They need to put those little beepers on them or something. I don't know what they need to do. Kind of like your, okay. But God wanted to be fully known, so He sent Himself in the likeness of His Son, because He wanted you to understand 2 things. Not only to be fully known, but to know fully. God didn't hide anything from us. And even when Jesus left, He said, listen, I'm going to be straight up with you and everything. He said, in this life you'll have trouble, but take heart. I've overcome this world. You see, He wasn't trying to sell us a bill of goods that said that, man, this is going to be hunky-dory from here on out. All you got to do is come know me and everything's going to be peachy keen. No, He's very straightforward with us. And He said, you know what? You're going to have trouble. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Okay, cool. So here's the deal. Here's your homework. I'm going to give it to you up front. On this very first page, it says 7 things I need to know from my spouse. So everybody listen to me before you even start writing. Okay? Now, excuse me, for those of you who are not married, I say this to every single person, especially even my own children. When they were kind of in those teen years, I would tell my girls especially, boys are harder to talk to unless you keep a fist in your hand or something, I don't know. But girls, I say, listen, here's what I want you to do for me. I want you to write down everything that you want from a man. I mean, I want you to write everything. And I want you to say it and write it and give me the list. And then here's what I want to do with it. I want to fold it up, put it in an envelope, and stick it away. And when you come to me and say, Dad, I've met Mr. Right, we'll go to that little list and we'll open it, and Mr. Right doesn't have everything that you dream, then guess what? He ain't Mr. Right. Hello. Guys, same thing goes for you. If she ain't got everything that you dreamed as a young boy, then why in the world would you settle for less than what God's got, and we call it His best for you? And so in this thing, here's what we find. Now, we find that most spouses have never told one another, here's what I need from you. Here's what I really, really need from you. Now, everybody take me serious. Now, if you're thinking about getting married, you need to write this down. The 7 things I'm looking for a guy that I'm going to need. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do, and this is your assignment for the week. I want you to, not today, I want you to write those 7 things down. And then I want you to give this list to your spouse this week. Okay? But before you do, there's another part of it you got to do. Right over in the column, I didn't put this because I knew you'd start writing things. When you write number 1, then I'm going to ask you to write 3 things, one of 3 things. Yes, no, or maybe. So here's what it means. If you need number 1, yes, I'm getting it. No, I'm not. Maybe. Or write the word sometime. Now, you know what's going to be revealing to your spouse? When they look at that list and go, wow. Now, it's only going to work if you're honest. Remember we talked about honesty week 1? It's only going to work if you're honest. Now, if you give this mamby-pamby list to your spouse, if you give them all the great qualities of who they are, and they're just going to beat their chest like, hey, I'm the king of the jungle. Look, I've already arrived. I want you to be honest, because you're never going to get what you need until you acknowledge what you need. And don't acknowledge it just to you. You've got to acknowledge it to them. Okay? Amen? Does everybody know your assignment? And I'm going to ask you to bring this list next Sunday. Hello? Some people are kind of going, how quick can I get out of here? It's time for us to get honest, isn't it? It's time for us to really look at this. So if your spouse is not here today, for some reason I need you to take one of these home with you and give it to her or him. So here we go. First thing, here's the first fill in the blank. What are you investing into your marriage? What are you investing into your marriage? If I were to ask you, what are you investing into your job, could you tell me some things? What do you invest in your job? Time.
Sweat.
Say again?
Sweat.
Sweat. Your life. Your talent. What else do you invest in your job? Money. Resources. What was that? I didn't hear it.
Attention.
Okay. So have you ever thought about it? Have you ever stepped back and said, this is what I'm investing? If marriage is the number one institution on the planet, more than the job, more than your vocation, more than your education, and you ask the question, if some of you who are students in the room, if I was asking you what you're investing in your education, you would tell me a lot of things. You would tell me the long nights. You would tell me the money. You would tell me the long drives. You tell me the things that you're having to go and do for free. What do they call those internships that you don't get paid for, but you work just as hard as the person standing next to you? You know, you would tell me all the things that you're investing so you can acquire an education. So my question to us as couples, what are we investing? And I'm giving you some lines there. And part of your homework this week is I need you to write down and then show your spouse, here's what I'm investing. And then let's see if they see it the way you see it. Amen?
Amen.
It's called being honest with each other. Here's the second one. What are you doing to protect your marriage? What safeguards have you put in place to protect your marriage? Because if it's valuable to you, you protect it, right? True? So what safeguards have you placed in your marriage to protect? Are you protecting time? Most of us don't. Right? Are you protecting what else? Intimacy? Most of us don't. Are you protecting, you know, we all guys, I mean, here's how well, physically taking care of stuff. Yeah. Nobody's gonna come to my house because I'm packing. I sleep next to a 9mm. Hey, we think protection in that mentality. Amen. But as much as you want to protect her physically, are you protecting her emotionally? Are you protecting her, right, spiritually? The Bible says that we are to wash her with the watering of the Word. Are you doing that? Are you protecting her that way? Are you taking guard over her, over principalities and powers that are at bay? Ladies, are you praying for your husband? Are you bringing down strongholds? That's what the Bible says we have the ability to do over your husband. Or what are you doing to protect? And I need you to list it. And then you're going to show this to your spouse. So what are you doing to protect this most incredible commodity that God ever made called marriage? Because if you're not protecting it, there's somebody looking to steal it. Trust me. And the world is littered with broken hearts. Amen or amen? Broken lives. Littered by why? Because people decided not to protect. I'll give you one of the things I protect Nancy with. I'm never in a room alone with another woman other than my wife unless there's another female present. That's a protection. Now, I'm an old man. Even when I was a young man, I was never alone in a room with a woman by myself. Is it because I didn't trust myself? No. But I wasn't going to give the devil an opportunity, not only in me, but also in my character, to be able to use that against me. So I made sure my wife knows I'll never be. It got to the point early in our ministry, and back when I was in my 30s, and we'd have altar calls, and I felt really weird sometimes ministering to a lady at the front. And Nancy loved to work with children. One of the things we had to do to protect our marriage, I said, Nancy, you're just going to have to, tell the children's pastor, sorry y'all, that you can't serve in the back. Because I need you to protect me. I need you to be standing there when I minister to somebody of the opposite sex. Now, that's a protection. So you kind of get the drift. Here's the third one. What are you doing to refine? What are you doing to refine your marriage? How many of you are good at something? I was looking for some fly fishermen in the room. I don't see anybody fly fish. I was going to use golf, but there's not too many good golfers in the room either. But, I'm just teasing. I'm one of those. But, we call it refining our skill, right? We refine something that we're good at. So, but you know, if you don't use it, right? Well, if you don't use it, you can't refine something if you don't have it at the forefront. So here's what happens to most of us. You know, we've been married 34 years. If we don't refine what we're doing and continually make it better and better and better, it falls into what I call what category? Anybody know what that category is called? Then I end up taking her for granted. Anybody know what I'm talking about in the room? Then it's, you do this and I'm going to do this. And it's just taken for granted that these things are getting done because that's just kind of like this unspoken job requirement, right? Guys, when's the last time you grabbed the vacuum cleaner? Hello?
Yes.
When's the last time you cleaned the toilet? But let's even make it simple. When's the last time you cleaned out the dishwasher? Or folded the clothes? Now I'm using things from a guy's vantage point. You know, I told Nancy, whatever you do, stay off my lawnmower. I bless you, love you, but don't touch my lawnmower.
Amen.
You know, I know, hey, your heart's in the right spot, but last time she got in the lawnmower, I won't tell you what happened. So stay off my lawnmower. But hey, I know your heart's in the right spot. You see what we're getting to? What are you doing to refine? Now, I'm not going to give this to you, and you think, well, you're not giving me a whole lot. I need you to be creative because I need you this week. Trust me, I'm going to ask you next Sunday, what did you say and what was the response? Because it's time for us to really get honest with each other. All right, Hebrews chapter 2, verse 1. Here's what it says. It says in this passage that I believe Paul wrote, he says, for this reason, we must pay much. You need to write that in there. Much close attention to what we have heard, lest we drift away from it. If you were to go talk to somebody at Coca-Cola and ask for the chemistry makeup of the Coke product that's under lock and key in some vault somewhere, and how it's made, and what are the steps and procedures, and they're going to look at you and say, you're out of your mind. That's never going to be given to anybody, right? That's ours. We're never getting away from the core of what made Coca-Cola Coca-Cola. I used to be in the textile business for some 19 years, years and years ago. And one of the things that I learned in the textile business was what you're wearing, the clothes you're wearing, the cloth on the seats, you know, the material, the yarn, the thread that's in the carpet. It's all made on equipment. And I started working there in the 70s. And back then it was just this old, antiquated, the equipment had been used the same way for years and years. But then they started making this new, innovative equipment that would do it quicker. But here's what I learned, and all the engineers would say, you can try to make yarn, and you can try to make it faster. You can try to make it more, as far as effective as far as the percentage of keeping it running in an 8-hour period. But you can't get away from the basics of taking yarn and spinning it into a piece of string. That's a basic that you can't get away from. You can make it faster, you can make it more effective, but you can't change the very basic steps of making yarn that goes into any material. You see, the same says for the Bible. You can try to do it differently. You can be creative, but you can't get away from the basics. You can't get away from it, what you've heard, what you've seen, what you know works. You can try to be creative. You can try to do it differently. But the one thing that I'll tell you that I know from many years of not only being in relationships, but being a Christian, the moment, I said this to a guy this morning, it's not a 90-degree turn. The Bible says you start to drift. And many of you have heard my analogy. It's my favorite analogy. So for those of you who haven't heard it, just, you're getting to hear it, and the rest of you are going to, kind of yawn or whatever. But did y'all like the Wizard of Oz? I didn't really like the color one. I like the black and white personally. But do y'all remember, everybody watch the Wizard of Oz? Okay. So let me ask you a question. Now, what's the girl's name? Dorothy. Okay, thank y'all. I just want to make sure you're listening. when, the story says that she was on this yellow brick road. Yeah, here we go. And she's going to go to the land of Oz and find the answers to what she was looking for, which was a way home. And it said, stay on the... Thank you for playing. I appreciate that. It makes me feel better. So stay on the yellow brick road. Stay on the yellow brick road. Stay on the yellow brick road. Right? Remember? Okay. Y'all want me to sing that too? Okay. And so, did she follow the instructions? When did Dorothy get in trouble? It's when she got off the yellow brick. Now watch this stuff. But she got off for good reason. Right? The scarecrow needed to be stuffed. The Tin Man needed to be oiled. Right? But every time she got off this road, she found herself in trouble. True or not? Now you say, okay, what does that have to do with this Bible passage? Well, hang on. I'm going to bring you back to reality. But for me and you, He's given us a way to walk. And when you and I, for whatever good reasons we think, get off of it and drift, we find ourselves in trouble. And what's so funny about the drift, and I'm going to give you kind of some Greek words here in just a second, but when we drift, it's not a quick, hey, you really realize you've gone from A to B, but you have. Or in some cases, you've gone from A to D, or A to E, or A to Z. And you look back and go, how did I get here from there? It was a very minute drift. Watch this, over time. And then we wonder, I got away from my quiet times. I got away from being around other brothers and sisters in Christ. I got away from really just spending time praying. I got away from listening to the music that encouraged me and lifted me up. I quit worshiping. I slowly started, making excuses, not hanging out at church, on Sundays, and came up, it was windy today, so I didn't go, or, my big toe hurt, or, it was just little things, and all of a sudden we drifted away from the things that you've got to do to be successful in a relationship, number one, with God, which then has an opportunity of having a relationship with Nancy. And so it leads us to this. It says, at the bottom of your page, it says, you need to watch for the drift. Get your eyes open. What causes the drift? And how do you avoid the drift? Well, we're going to talk about that. How many times have you heard this saying? When you ladies, I'm going to use you as an example. How many of you have asked your husband this question? You ready? How you doing? I'm fine. No. How you doing? I'm fine. And see, women have insight, men have sight. And so, women pick up on all these little nuances. And so they kind of figured it out. Okay, what's going on? Hey, how are you doing? I'm fine. Have we ever heard that before? Men, watch this. Now I'm going to put the ladies on the spot. Honey, how are you? I'm fine. Even the tone of her voice tells you it ain't fine. Right? But it's our two-word get out of jail free card. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. How many times have we heard it? Hundreds? Because it comes down to the fact that we drifted and we've decided that, you know what, the best thing I can do is keep my mouth shut. But God's telling us that there's something else needs to take place. So before Nancy comes and teaches you about this forgiveness thing, I want you to see forgiveness in two venues. I need you to see forgiveness because we all need it. But it says forgiveness and engage. And there's two parts to this deal. Okay? Nancy's going to talk to you about forgiveness. But you know what? We forget that once we've forgiven, we have to re-engage. We have to re-engage in that relationship. It's only one part of it is to forgive. It's another thing to re-engage with the person you're in that relationship with. And so I'm going to give you kind of some things to think about. Now, let me ask you this question. Has anybody fought in the room with you're in a relationship or with your spouse? Anybody? Anybody want to do a double? Okay, yeah, anybody want to do a double? Okay. And has this ever happened to you? that, you know, that fault led to another fight, that led to another fight, and then you finally get to the point, what did we start fighting about in the beginning? I mean, what, you know, has any of that happened to anybody? Yeah, sure it has. And then it just becomes one thing after the next after the next. You see, what we've learned in years and years of doing this, you know, when people first get married, man, they'll do anything to keep peace in the valley, right? And what I mean by that is we used to fight for each other. Would that be a true statement? And then we started fighting with each other. And then we just quit fighting at all. And what I mean by that is we just stopped fighting altogether. And friend, I'm going to tell you something. My relationship with Nancy is worth fighting for. Regardless of what she's done or I've done. Regardless of how stupid I've been. And trust me, that's an easy thing. Right? Hello? I mean, I can do things that you just go, really? And get myself in trouble. I've learned to really take my words, you know, think before I speak. Anybody know what I mean by that? Yeah. And because here's what I know. In a fight, someone wins and someone, and here's what we do. We have this mentality, we're going to keep fighting until you lose. Because I'm not planning on losing. Right? So I'm going to teach you how to fight fair. Fighting fair. How to make a marriage work. Here's 5 things to avoid. 5 things to avoid. I told you this is going to be kind of topical today. The first one's criticism. You know, when we start fighting, first thing we do, we want to get critical. We focus on the negative, not the positive. We immediately go to something that we can point out as a glaring, you know, character trait problem or you know, other, you know, problem that we've created by our actions, and we immediately get critical of the person, watch this, that we're in love with. Right? Because we have this mentality, because I'm fighting to win, I'm not fighting to lose. Right? So the first attack is, let me be critical. Now, nobody's going to raise their hand, but I'm going. So we raise our hand. Okay, we start. The second thing we do is we get defensive. And you know what defensive means? It ain't about me, it's about you. Nancy, let me tell you about all your problems and issues. Right? We get defensive. Don't even come to me, because I'm going to get defensive. And what happens when we get defensive? Here's what you need to write here, is I can't hear what you're saying. I done shut you down. I done shut you off. I can't hear what you're saying. So here's 5 ways to fight fair. Don't get defensive, and then you can hear something. And I love it this way. Maybe you'll learn something. But once I've shut you off because I've become defensive, then I can't hear what you're saying. Here's a big one, and it's contempt. And contempt really means this: anything that will tear you down. And here's the sad part. And we become like masters of this one. We're good at tearing each other up. And here's what's funny. We're tearing up people that we love. Wow. Isn't that crazy? Once you think about that for a minute, go, that doesn't sound right, does it? We're tearing down, you know, the person that we love. Here's another thing to fight fair. Don't stonewall. Don't withdraw. Don't disengage. Don't just shut down. Because it won't be a fair fight. You know, now, when we say the word fight, some people go, well, I'm in church, I think we're supposed to fight. I'm using a real word in a biblical way. We're going to fight. It's going to happen, right? Arguments are going to come up. We're going to say things that we do not. Oh, really? So that's all I'm going to get? We're going to say things we don't mean. Is that a true statement? But here's what we got critical. We got defensive. Okay, you with me? And then we started, you know, there's a great book. Who wrote the book? Hang on a minute. What's the book I had you read? And you read about Chunkin Spears.
Three Kings.
The Tale of Three Kings. Thank y'all very much. I appreciate y'all. But in this book, he talks about, you know, the reason we become spear chuckers. You know what a spear chucker is we know how to throw them, right? King David had to dodge a few of those from his king because the king was chasing him around with spears because, you know, the king wanted to get David, and so he started chunking spears. And how many times do we get mad and we get into an argument or a fight and we start chunking those spears out of righteousness? I'm right. And I'm going to let you know I'm right. And we start chunking spears. And then we realize that, maybe I shouldn't be chunking spears. Do you know how I can teach you not to chunk spears? It's not that I'm going to teach you not to chunk them. I'm going to teach you not to pick them up. That's what these fighting fear. Don't pick it up. Don't pick up that critical spirit. Don't pick up that defensiveness. If you don't pick it up, you can't chunk it, right? You can't shoot the bullet if you don't load the, you with me? And we got to learn to disengage from things that the culture has taught us. Well, get fair, get right. Get even. That's a big one, isn't it? You show me where it says get even in the Bible and I'll change my mind. It doesn't tell you that. It says lay down your life. It says be last. Don't be first. It says be wrong and I'll make it right. You see the oxymoron here? Okay, you with me? Now here's the big one. Right fighter. One thing I've learned in the 30-something years we've been doing counseling, everybody that I've, probably not everybody, but the majority of people that have sat with Nancy and I over the years, they want to be right more than they want to be reconciled. They want to be right. And I'm going to use the top 4 things above this to make sure you understand I want to be right. And I look at couples all the time, when I ask the question, what are you willing to do to save your marriage? How far are you willing to go? Because I'm trying to figure out, is this person somebody we really need? Can we even help these people? And then I get to this, are you willing to be wrong instead of right? Are you willing not to get what you want so that your marriage can be whole? Because we all want to be right fighters. Well, you can't be right and be reconciled. I think kind of one of my notes here that I made to myself, and for me, we got to quit fighting myself, which in turn makes me fight Nancy, which then becomes this, I'm going to win at all cost. And then it gets to the point I forget what I'm fighting her about. And now it's become because I started bringing all this data into the fight, past history. How many of you have ever had this happen to you? You start fighting about one thing and then another subject got brought up, something happened 20 years ago, and you look at each other and go, where did that come from? I thought we dealt with that, 19 years ago. Hello? Nobody but me? Okay. Right? All of a sudden you get him and go, God, I thought that was what, 12 years ago? I thought we'd already dealt with that. I don't know, Now, ladies, I hate to tell you this, you're the world's worst. Men, we're not that smart. We probably can't think that far back. But y'all have this, what I tell Nancy all the time, I call it the closet. And y'all store some of this stuff in that closet, and you don't fight fair. Because all of a sudden, here comes something happening. And you go, okay. Because see, forgiveness, as Nancy's fixing to hit, starts, and then we re-engage on the other side of forgiveness. And if you can't engage, then why even do forgiveness? Or then here's what you're doing. You're just doing forgiveness to kind of get past the threshold of what the Bible teaches us.
It's funny, I've been reading this book called Sacred Marriage. It's been a very difficult book to read because it really challenges me. And one of the things Gary Thomas in that book said is that one of marriage's primary purpose is to teach us how to forgive. That God uses our marriages to build character into us, to make us more Christ-like. And that's always a difficult thing to do sometimes, is to forgive. Particularly when you love someone. And I love this man deeply, but there are times when I don't like him, when he does something that hurts me, when he may say something, doesn't even realize he said something to hurt me, but it does. And so at that moment I have a choice to make. in this book, he talks about that forgiveness is actually an act of self-defense. It's a tourniquet that we can put on our own hearts to keep us from bleeding out. I know what it's like to hold a grudge. I've held many in my life. One in particular is with against one of my brothers. And I spent a whole year not speaking to him. I was so ticked off at him. During that year, I could not quit gaining weight. I fell into a deep depression because I believe that a lot of depression is caused by anger that we turn inward, that we don't process. I spent a whole year bitter with him, and he never knew it. The only person it hurt was me. He never knew I was mad at him. The only person that it destroyed was me. There was a documentary done on the Holocaust, and there was a Jewish leader in one of the ghettos. And he made the statement, he said, if you could lick my heart, it would poison you. And that's so true. Bitterness and unforgiveness is like drinking a poison and hoping that the other person will die. It's the only person that really hurts is us. As a believer, forgiveness is not an option. We are commanded to forgive. And I gave you a couple scriptures in Matthew 6:15. It says, for if you forgive men when they sin against you, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive men their sins, your Father cannot forgive you. And that's a tough statement. That's a very tough statement. It also says in Luke 6:28, it tells us to bless those who curse us and pray for those who mistreat us. And I know several weeks ago I gave some of the women a list of 31 things to pray for their husband. It's one thing to pray for somebody, because I can pray, God, would you teach him this? Would you do this? Would you do that? It's another thing to bless someone, particularly someone that's hurt you. And I know I've told this story before, but for those who've not heard it, Robbie's stepsister suffered from addiction from about the age of 14. She was able to function up to a certain point until she got on meth, and that was her downfall. She got in trouble, spent a couple years in prison, and during that time we took her 2 boys in, whom I love dearly. I consider them my sons. But there would be times when I would be sitting in a ball game with these boys or sitting at school, and I would get so mad at Denise. Because I'm thinking she should be here. These are her kids, they're not mine. She should be here. She should be enjoying this. And I would get so angry. And I'd just curse her. I mean, I really would. I was ugly. And not to her face, but underneath my breath. And the Lord kept telling me, you need to start praying for her. And every time you get frustrated, turn it into a prayer. And it was hard. It was hard. But the more I prayed for her, the more I thought about her and I prayed for her, God gave me insight. You know, when we curse someone, we're looking with our own eyes, our natural eyes. But when we ask God to bless them, God helps us to look at other people through his eyes. She was a good mother. The drugs made her an addict. The drugs took that away from her. It was not her. That was not who Denise was. And so the more I prayed for her, the more I realized, the more I hated the sin, I hated the drugs, I hated what Satan had done in her life, but I loved who she was. And I think that's just a huge lesson for us to learn how to bless our husbands. I think sometimes we don't bless our spouses. We bless other people, but we don't pray God's blessing on them. And when you pray God's blessing on them, it affects you also. In Ephesians 4:26, this is a scripture a lot of people know. It says, be angry, yet do not sin. Do not let the sun go down in your anger, and do not give the devil an opportunity. Just like Robbie said, in any marriage, we're going to have fights. We're going to have arguments because we're two totally different people. We're going to have disagreements. And it's okay to be angry. There's plenty of times in Scripture when God was angry. I think Jesus actually cleaned out the church one time because he was angry because the money changers were selling things in the church and he got angry. It's okay to be angry. It's how we process that anger is what we need to learn how to do. And it says, do not let the sun go down in your anger. I think if we were to take that scripture, the anger for today, we can handle. It's manageable. But I don't know about you guys, but when I sleep on something, subconsciously, I give Satan an opportunity. in that scripture, it says, do not give the devil an opportunity. The word devil there is actually the word that means slanderer. And the more, when we store up that unforgiveness against our spouse, Satan will come and start telling us his lies. It's all his fault. Oh man, Nancy, you married the wrong guy. This was not God's best for you. And you begin to listen to those lies when you give Satan that opportunity. And so how do we?
One of the things that we'll say to you that we decided to do years ago, let's go back to, I asked you 3 questions. How are you protecting this relationship? Here's something we do. Anytime that we have a day where we raise our voices, we are in a heavy discussion, we're arguing, we've only had 2 arguments in 34 years, and what I call real arguments where, we raised our voice and got angry with each other. And we've had many disagreements, but here's what we do. Even when we're upset with each other, before we go to sleep that night, this is how we protect. Before we close our eyes, we forgive each other and we embrace each other. One of the things I used to do, now none of you would do this because you're great Christians and y'all are super duper people, but I would get into bed and just put my back to Nancy and put my head on my pillow. And guess what? Without speaking a word, she got the message. Right? Nobody's done that but me. I'm glad I'm the only heathen in the room. Yeah, see, I used to do that. And I was wrong. Because the Bible says, don't let the sun go down. Don't let the day end with the last thing she heard me say. Or the last thing I heard her say. We didn't say that we had resolved it. But we went to each other and said, I love you, forgive me, and we'll continue the conversation, or we'll talk about this tomorrow or whatever. So one of the things you can do, I'm giving you one to fill in. So if that's the only one y'all bring back to me next week, I'm calling you on it. But that's one.
I think, and you didn't tell me this, but one of the things he does do every night is he tries to make me laugh. I mean, if it's doing a dive bomb into the bed or something like that, it's whatever. We try to go to bed
Now,
laughing.
there's certain things we got to cop. They're all the line. Okay? They're all the line.
We try to do that. I think when we are angry, we respond in so many different ways. We can receive the truth, but we can hide our feelings. I'm really good at that. I can receive, he can tell me he's angry at me and I'll receive it, but I won't express my feelings back towards him. It all turns inward and it spirals down into depression for me, which is something I have to learn to really battle. I can also, because I become passive aggressive at that point. I may not be verbally aggressive with him, but he knows with my attitude, he knows that I've received what he said to me, but I'm not real happy about it, We can actually reject our spouse. How many people today live in a household where we're married, but we don't communicate? We are roommates. That's about it. We've rejected, we've hidden our hearts from each other. And some of us also take revenge. We can become angry, we can become dominant, we can be spiteful in our words and our actions. But the go ahead.
Let me interject this. When Nancy and I were talking, marriage is supposed to be this glorious, incredible, just trip of a lifetime that you go and on, you just go, wow. And then when it's not, we're devastated. But it would be like this. It would be like, waiting and anticipating as a young kid that you were going to Disney for a week. And now you've already researched, what all's there. You've already planned out how many rides and all the things you're going to get to see and do. You're going to the studios to watch all the crazy rides to the movies. I mean, you've planned it out. And you get there, you've got your ticket in your hand, you walk in the front gate, and they tell you, well, all the rides are closed for the next 7 days. Here's what you can say: I went to Disney. But I didn't ride the rides. I can say I'm married, but have I been on the trip? And that's what happens when we drift, and we do. We drift away from each other. And then it comes to the point where we've drifted so far that we're not sure if we really have the energy to do what? Swim back. Hello, amen? So, this is supposed to be an adventure. This is supposed to be, what's this? This is a big three-letter word. It's supposed to be fun to be married. Hello? You see what Nancy's getting to? And unforgiveness keeps us from experiencing the ride.
How many of us have said this before, that I've fallen out of love? I'm not so sure that's necessarily true or biblical, but so many of us have said that, and I think it's because of the drift. My challenge today is for us to start falling towards our spouse. We will all get hurt in marriage. We will all make mistakes in marriage. But instead of withdrawing, instead of falling out of love, let's fall towards it. And the Bible commands us that if our marriage is to reflect the relationship that Christ has with his church, he redeemed his church. So my challenge is for us to learn how to redeem our marriage. When we are separated emotionally, when we have had an argument, I have a choice to make. I can either get bitter, I can give unforgiveness, or I can redeem that. In 1 Peter 2:21-25, it tells us that Christ gave us an example, and it says, to this you were called, because Christ suffered for you, leaving you an example that you should follow in his steps. He committed no sin, and no deceit was found in his mouth. So I think as believers, we have to make a decision when we are sinned against, even in a relationship, even outside of marriage, when we're sinned against. We have to be committed that we don't sin in return. I think our first response is to fight back. If someone's wronged us, our first thing is to wrong them. Two wrongs don't make right, my mom always said. And you can't fight a bad spirit with a bad spirit. It just doesn't work. It makes a worse spirit. We have to learn how to fight evil with the light. We fight sin with righteousness. It's just like Robbie said in the story with King David. He had a chance to destroy Saul. Saul was hunting him down, and David was hiding for his life. He was a chosen king of Israel, but he's hiding like a coward. And he's in a cave with his men hiding, and King Saul has to relieve himself. So he goes into the cave to relieve himself, and there he is literally with his pants down. And David could have killed him right then, and his men said, kill him. And he said, I will not touch God's anointing. And he opted not to pick up that spear. So I think in marriage, we've got to learn that when we are hurt by something our spouse may have said, that we have to commit ourselves not to sin, not to pick up that spear and chuck it back.
Or take advantage of our spouse when they're most vulnerable. And men, I'll speak directly to you. I mean, we perfected that. If I know anything, I know this. In the years since I've been saved, the years since we've been doing this, I've met more wounded women, more than I can count. They were wounded by a man for whatever reason, because they were vulnerable, they were in a bad place emotionally, spiritually, whatever, and we took advantage of that. And in some cases, we think we did it in for the right reasons. You know, I tell Joel all the time, you know, I'm a right fighter in some senses, and then Celebrate Recovery on Friday nights. You know, ladies, if you don't know this, when I'm here, I'm looking around the room taking care of you. If I see a man there for the wrong reasons, trust me, I'll show him the door before anybody else will, because I'm going to protect you. Because there's some men there for the wrong reasons. We talked about that, haven't we, Joel? And, you know, anything in this church, when there's a single lady, you know, we take it, some men have taken advantage of it. And so, you know, when we're vulnerable in a cave, our pants down, then what we do as couples, we take advantage of those weak moments. And man, we can do some real damage in weakness. And Nancy's telling you that the way to not do that is don't ever pick that sword up.
The second part of that verse says that not only did Jesus commit no sin, there was no deceit found in his mouth. When they hurled their insults at him, he did not retaliate. We are not to use our words for revenge. Our words are used to build up and not to tear down. The last part says, instead, Jesus entrusted himself to him who judges justly. There comes a point in our marriage where we have to, if our spouse is not walking with the Lord, if our spouse is not, if he's drifted, he or she has drifted, we have to learn to do the right thing and entrust that God will handle the rest for us. And I know that's difficult at times. But we have to learn, or we have to make a decision. Are we willing to pay a price in order for my spouse to know how much I love them, even when they're doing wrong? I say this with a caution, because I'm talking, I know that there may be some people in here that are in an abusive relationship. My advice to you, if you're in an abusive relationship, is to get out. Don't divorce, let's work through it, let's come up with a reunification plan, but God never intended for you to be abused. Abuse causes damage. Fights cause a little bit of suffering, but it may not cause permanent damage. So I just felt like I needed to say that, because I just feel like I don't ever want anyone to stay in an emotionally or physically abusive relationship. God's got something better for you, and I've watched him heal couples. I've watched him work on men that were physically abusive and change their hearts and restore that marriage. I've seen it. I know some people in this room that God's done that. So it can be done, that God can heal. But I think my challenge is for us to learn, as difficult as this is, God says that we are to forgive. And many times I think I don't want it to sound legalistic, because I'll be honest with you, my natural woman tells me not to forgive, that I've been wronged. It's only through the power of God that lives inside of you, and to ask him to show you, to teach you, to give you the heart of forgiveness, because there are some things that have been done to us that are difficult to forgive. But are we willing to have the ministry of reconciliation? And am I willing to redeem my marriage? Am I willing to prove to Robbie how much I love him, and how much my marriage means, and how much I want my marriage to look like the marriage between Christ and his bride? That I'm willing to do right, to trust God for the outcome.
You see, simply this, when we say these words, I want to fight for my marriage. I don't want to fight in my marriage, and I don't want to fight against Nancy. I want to fight for my marriage. That means it starts in forgiveness. It really does. And first, you got to forgive yourself. The friend and somebody in our church handed me this. We'll note one day, and I agreed with it. And based on my history with counseling, it says, a lot of ladies have believed their husbands, were all that in a bag of chips, right? Guys, we love that. But sometimes, ladies, you need to forgive your husband for not being God. He's not. And he doesn't know every need, and he's not here to supply your every need. When we put your husbands, or we put our wives in the place that God's supposed to sit in our lives, we're in trouble. We are in trouble, because Nancy can't give me what I really need. Only God can. I can't, as much as I would want to give her everything she needs, I can't. I want to. I'll do everything I can to try. But there are certain things that I don't have the ability, I don't have the gifts to meet for her. Only God can. And so forgiveness is that part to say, please forgive me because I didn't do X, Y, Z like I was supposed to. Forgive me that I didn't meet your expectations. Forgive me, forgive me, forgive me. And I'm going to come back to something I said earlier. We need to forgive freely. You know what that means? I'm not forgiving just because I'm supposed to, but I'm forgiving freely of my own will. And Nancy said this. I said this to her on Monday when we were starting to write this. And I thought about options on a car. When you go buy something, or something you want, you get that options page, what you can add to it, right? I don't want this, I do want that, I want that color, don't want it, right? Y'all know what I'm talking about? This means yes, okay, y'all looking a little weird. But see, in my relationship with God, forgiveness is not an option I get to add if I want it. It's not. It's not something you get to pick and choose. It's commanded by God. And what we've found over the years we've been doing this, most marriages have tucked away, put under the rug, hid in that little closet, unforgiveness over and over and over and over. And what's happened is over that time, that unforgiveness has caused a drift. Here's what I'm going to encourage you to do this week. It's time to clean the closet, sweep under the rug, whatever you want to call it, and deal with some stuff and operate as Christ commanded us to operate with each other. Now, I didn't say go dig up some old dirt. That's not what I said. But you know what? If there's something there that's never been dealt with, it's got to be dealt with. And y'all need to start the process of reconciliation. Because I can assure you this, if you want the freedom that Christ offers, it only comes after forgiveness, not before. True freedom. Amen or amen? You understand what I'm getting to? And I'll leave you with a thought here, okay? Nancy said it, but it's so true. For me as a man, and I know I'm getting in touch with my feminine side, next week I'm going to wear a pink hat like Wendy's wearing, just so y'all know I'm getting in touch with my feminine side. But men won't say this, but we really, ladies, I want you to understand this from a man. We do want to fall forward. We want you to create a place where we can still be your Superman, even when we fall. Even when we step on our tongue. Even when we say things we shouldn't say. Because what happens to most men, I've learned, is when we kept falling backwards, more and more times because there's not a safe place to fall, the distance gets further and further because there's not a safe place to fall. So I say this on behalf of all men, and I'm a big boy. We want to fall forward into your arms. Don't push us away because we still want you to think we're all that in a bag of chips. When it's all said and done, we still want to be the guy that you double thumbs up. Nancy said earlier, is this the guy I should have married? I don't ever want her to think that. Because she's given me the ability to fail forward and fall and not have to be falling backwards away from her. Because what ends up happening for men, here's what I'll tell you, ladies, we'll start hiding. We'll start hiding from you. We'll start hiding stuff from you. And we'll start burying it as deep as we got to bury it because we're men. We're Samson. And it comes to a point we get so hard and we don't even know we become hard. So let's fall forward. Amen? Okay. Are we learning anything? Is any of this stuff helping? I hope so. We got a couple more weeks, so give us a couple more weeks and we'll finish this thing up. We hope. We'll leave that for the Lord. But a couple of quick things I need to give you. We've got so much going on. Grab a little card here. I lost one. This is one of those real bright ones. This coming Sunday, the 14th, the kids and the youth are going to the animal shelter. They're going to meet here at the church at what time? At 10. Okay? And again, as if y'all heard me say, they're learning to be servants, and it's a way for them to go and serve without getting anything. All right, hold on, there's another card I have here, but let me wing it because I don't know what I did with it. A couple of quick things. In just a second, are you going to do it from back there?
No.
Okay, come on up this way. We want you to know we launched the new website, and Miss Megan did it. Nancy, grab that microphone and hand it her real quick, please. She wants to tell you two things about the website, and hey, watch this. They're going to really think I've joined the hip crowd. We have a Facebook page. Now, I don't know what that means, but we have one, and it's a way for us to communicate. So she's going to explain to you how you can get connected and what you can do with your ladies. Men, do y'all know what Facebook is? Most men? Okay, I'm just not real versed on it. So listen, guys, because we need your help.
our website. So when you go to thegatheringchurch.org, Georgia.org, this is what first pops up. And then you can go to About Us, and we have our service times, and we have kind of a snippet about what we're about. And you can go to our ministry team, and it'll pop up Robbie and Nancy, and then our discipleship team, John and Nancy, and Travis and Kim, and y'all can, and Melissa and Joel and Brandy and Ty, and you can read a little snippet about what they're about and who they are as a person individually. And then you can go over to ministries. We have Celebrate Recovery, and you can read about what Celebrate Recovery is all about. And over on the side, we have our dates and when we have meals and when it starts, and we'll post updates on there as well. And you can always, this will always be up there that you can go and read about. And then we also have, under ministries, we have Kingdom Express. And you can read about what Kingdom Express is all about. And we will also post upcoming events and new things that are going to be happening. And if you scroll down, we also have announcements, and then we will be uploading pictures as they go to, like they went to the nursing home, and they'll be going to the another one this next week, and the animal shelter, and we'll upload that as well. And then we also got Thrive, which is our youth student ministry, and you can read what's all about there. And we will also post updates there for them as well. And as we go throughout our series and different series here at The Gathering, we will also post it up on our events page. And anything else that happens throughout there, we will also post more updates there. And if you ever have any questions or always want to contact us, you can also go here and you can reach out to us that way.
So really quickly, we went from not having one to having one, and it'll get refined as we go. We'll be adding so many things, but now you can send people to the website. It's also have what we believe on there and all that good stuff. And so eventually there'll be these little infomercials that'll go on there, and so it's a great job, good start, and thank you for doing that. And here's a big thing called Facebook, and she's going to explain Facebook to you.
So I created a Facebook page as well. We also have a group that you can join too. We also post updates there as well, but this is more just to reach out to the community. You can follow us just looking at The Gathering, or you can type in